go. Okay, we're recording now. All right, so guys, I was telling y'all last week that this week we're really going to go over two sections, or 2.7 and 2.8, and I was saying I think most of y'all can probably handle 2.8 on your own, but 2.7 for some people is a little tricky. So anyway, let's go through 2.7. Let's see if we can't figure out kind of how to go through some of this stuff here. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom in a little bit because the first thing we're going to talk about are these things called vertical and horizontal shifts. So the way we know whether or not we're going to be shifting the graph either vertically, which means either up and down, or horizontally, which means we're going to be shifting it either left and right, the way we're going to be able to figure that out is by looking at, let me see, okay, by looking at where the shift is coming into play. So I want you to think about when it's just like an f of x, this here is talking about my y values, okay? So if I have a plus c or a minus c, and that c, guys, is just going to be a number, right? So it's going to be like a +3 or a -5. If it's something like that, that's going to be shifting my y values. So this means that my graph will either be going up or my graph will be going down, okay? And then if the minus c or the plus c is inside those parentheses, then if it's inside those parentheses, then this is going to be a horizontal shift. Oops. It's going to be a horizontal shift, so we're going to be moving the graph either left or right, okay? So the way we're going to figure that out, we're just going to look at our first problem here. Okay, and it says, given the graph of y equals f of x, so there's our graph, guys. And not only do we have the graph, but we actually have like a table of values as well. We're going to figure out how we're going to graph this part. We're going to figure out how we're going to graph y equals f of x plus 2. So the first thing I'm going to do is I notice that the plus 2 is on the outside of the parentheses, right? So when the plus 2 is on the outside of the parentheses, what that means is that this is what we're going to be looking at. Because if you notice right here, the plus c is on the outside. This means that my graph is going to be moving upward. And in this case, when I look at the problem that we have, it's going to be moving upward 2 spaces. Okay? So, excuse me, what I mean by that, y'all, is that my x values here, those numbers aren't going to change. That's still going to be -1. That's still going to be 0. That's still going to be 2. But what we are going to do is we're going to take these y values here, and we're going to add 2 to every one of them. So my first question to you, what is -2 plus 2? 0. Good. 1 plus 2? 3. Okay, just checking. -1 plus 2? 1, right? So if I owe you $1 and I have 2 and I give you $1, I still have $1 left. Okay. So guys, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to plot these points. So look, when the x value is -1, the y value is 0. When the x value is 0, the y value is going to be 3. And when the x value is 2, the y value is going to be 1. And there's my picture. And if you look at this picture compared to that one, all we did is we took that graph and we just moved it up 2 spaces, right? That's all I'm really trying to do here, y'all. In these problems, I'm just trying to figure out, is my graph going to go up? Is it going to go left? Is it going to go right? Is it going to go down? Which way is it going to go? And the way I'm going to figure that out is I'm going to look at what I have here, and I'm going to do a little stare and compare to that part, right? And so when I look at this piece here, the way my graphs or the way my functions are written, it'll tell me whether I'm going to go up or down or left or right. And I have to see, is that number inside of the parentheses or is that number on the outside of the parentheses? So when we looked at this one here, we said, look, that number was on the outside. That told me it was going to go up too, okay? That's how I'm going to be able to figure out these problems. So look, let's try another one the same way. Same exact problem here, same exact original function. And it says, look, now let's graph y equals f of x minus 1. So the first thing I'm going to do here, I notice that this minus 1, again, y'all, is on the outside of my parentheses. It's not in there, it's outside the parentheses, right? So when I look at this problem and I say, look, hold on, let me come back over here. If it's on the outside and it's minus, the graph is going to go down, right? So how am I going to do this? I'm going to come back over here and I say, look, those x numbers aren't going to change. That's still going to be -1. That's still going to be 0. That's going to be 2. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to subtract 1 from each of those numbers. So first question, anybody know what's -2 minus 1? -3, very good. 1 minus 1 is? Good. And -1 minus another one? Anyone know? -2, right? If I owe you $1 and I borrow another $1, you would tell me, hey, you owe me 2? Okay, so guys, I'm going to do the same thing we did before. Now let's go ahead and plot those points. So these are my x values here, and these are my y values here, right? So here's my first point, -1, -3. When x is -1, y is down here to -3. 0, 0 is right here in the middle. And 2, -2 goes to the right 2 and then down 2. There we go. And this graph, compared to this one, this graph here moved down 1 space. That's all we did. We just took that graph and just pulled it down 1 spot, right? So when I'm trying to figure these things out, those are going to be the key things that I'm going to look for. I'm going to say, okay, how can I do this? What's happening with the new function that I'm trying to graph? Okay. So let's keep moving along here. So far, are we good? Are we good on how I'm figuring these things out? Yeah. Okay. Just checking with you. All right. So look, I'm dealing with that same basic picture, right? And now I'm going to look at the next one here. It says y equals f of x minus 2. I want you to notice something, y'all. That -2 is inside the parentheses. Anytime it's inside, what's changing here are the x values. The x values are now going to change. This is telling me that my graph is either going to move right or my graph's going to move left, okay? And you're wondering, how am I going to figure that out? I'm going to scroll back one more time, right? And I want you to notice something here. And it might seem like, is that really the case? If you look at right here, when it has a -c, which way are we moving? We're moving to the right, aren't we? Okay. So let me come back over here. Okay, we're going to move to the right. So I want you to think about this, guys. We're going to move to the right. How many spaces? 2 spaces. So I want you to think about this point right here. Okay. If I were to move, say, this point to the right 2 spaces, it would go 1, 2. Does anybody know what would the coordinates of that point now be? If I took that point that was over here and I moved it to the right 2, that point used to be the point 2, -1. Now we moved it to the right. What would the coordinates of that point now be? 4, -1, right? Okay, I want you to notice something. Did the y value change? Okay, so guys, my y values are going to stay exactly the same. Since we're moving the points to the right, from 2 to get to 4, didn't we add 2 to that? Because we're actually moving to the right. So this number became 4. Guys, I'm going to do that all the way across. So 0 and 2 is now going to be 2. What's -1 and 2? Anybody know? 1? Good. Okay, so I want you to notice something. Since we're moving to the right, we're actually adding 2. And sometimes people will say, but look what we have on the inside. We have a minus 2. If y'all remember last week, remember when we were doing the equations with the circles? And I'm just going to kind of do this on the side over here because I don't want us to get too sidetracked. But if you remember when we did the equations with the circles and we said, this is what our basic equation looks like for an equation of a circle. And so I said, okay, look, this is the circle or the equation of a circle that we have. Does anybody remember what would I have to do with those signs? Do you remember what we would do to those signs? We would change them, right? So wouldn't the center here be 5 and 2, right? And then the radius would be the square root of that number, which would be 5 because it was always the radius squared, right? So we said no matter what numbers we had here, we were going to change the signs. Those numbers are inside the parentheses. So guys, when I have the thing inside the parentheses, if it says a minus 2, I'm really adding 2 to each of my x values, okay? So now that we have this, let's go ahead and plot these points. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, look, the first point is 1 and negative 2. So 1 and negative 2 is right here. 2 and 1 is right up here. And 4 and negative 1 is right over there. And so, oops, I made a mistake. Try that again. Okay, 1 and negative 2 is right here. Here we go. 2 and 1 is right there. And 4 and negative 1 is right here. Thought it looked a little different. And there's our graph. And again, all we did is we moved it to the right 2 spaces, okay? Okie dokie. So we probably have one more. Yes, we do. And let's see. First thing I notice again, y'all, that plus 1 is inside my parentheses, right? So the plus 1 is inside my parentheses. Again, this means I'm changing our x values, right? So if we're going to change our x values, the way we're changing these x values, I'm going to come back one more time so I can reference this, right? So you know where I'm getting this from. Here we go. Okay, if you notice right here, if we have a plus 1 or a plus value, we're actually changing it. We're moving that graph over to the left, right? So we're going to move that graph to the left 1 space. So I'm going to come back to my original problem, right? So let me come back over here. Remember we said we're only moving the graph now just to the left. So my y values aren't going to change. That's still going to be a negative 2. That's still going to be a 1. That's still going to be a negative 1. So if I'm going to move my graph to the left 1 space, then really what I'm going to do, y'all, here with each of these numbers, I'm going to subtract 1 from each of those numbers. So what is negative 1 minus 1? Anybody know? Negative 2, right? Okay. 0 minus 1 is negative 1. What about 2 minus a negative 1? It helps if you actually write it out like this. 2 minus a negative 1, everybody agree that that and that becomes plus, so it becomes a 3? Okay. And now again, I'm just going to do the same thing. So negative 2 and negative 2 is down over there. Negative 1 and positive 1 is right there. And 3 and negative 1 is right here. Here's my graph. Again, if you notice, all we did is we took this graph and we moved it to the left 1 spot, right? So I'm going to pull something up, guys, so I can use it as we are doing our, here we go. So we can do it as we're doing these problems here, okay? So let me see if, here we go. And I want to see if I can do a little copy and paste thing here. So let me see, where's my snipping tool? Here we go. Let's do this. Okay, and let me copy this here. Okay. And so what I want to do now is we're going to see if we can figure some of this stuff out. I'm going to, right here, paste this. And so all I have now is just that same kind of idea before. Now I have it over here, so I don't have to keep scrolling up and down every single time. Okay, so now there's something called vertical stretching and shrinking. So vertical stretching, guys, remember, vertical is an up and down sort of motion, okay? Vertical stretching means that the graph is going to stay as it is, but it's being stretched out like this, right? Vertical shrinking means you're going to sort of compress the graph from the top and the bottom. Okay, the way we're going to be able to figure out how do we know if this is a vertical stretch or a vertical shrink, okay? So let's see. Right here, it says if y equals c times f of x. So we're taking our function f and we're multiplying it by a number, okay? Remember, the f of x values, guys, are my y numbers. And it tells me if that number is bigger than 1, so if that number is any number bigger than 1.5, 2, 17, whatever it happens to be, right? Then what we're going to do is we're going to stretch that function, okay? And if the number is between 0 and 1, what kind of numbers are between 0 and 1? Bless you, numbers like 1/2 or 2/3 or 0.75, things like that. Then it's going to be what we call a vertical shrink. Okay, so I'm going to show you the way we're going to do this. So this particular problem, we're not actually going to draw a picture. We're just going to fill in the table. So if you notice here, y'all, they give me a table for y equals f of x. These are the x numbers. These are the y numbers, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to make a table for y equals 2 times f of x. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, look, this is x, and this here is y equals 2 times f of x. Okay? Since this value here is the same as that right there, that tells me that my x values are not going to change. They're going to stay exactly the way they are. So I'm going to leave this as a -4, a -2, a 0, and a 1. Okay, those numbers are going to stay exactly as they are. Now, I want you to notice something. The only difference between this piece here and this piece here is what number do we have in front? 2. So if the number is in front, that means that those numbers are being now multiplied by 2. So first question to you, what's -1 times 2? -2. What's -4 times 2? -8, right? What's 2 times 2? 4. And 2 times 2 again is still, and that's all I'm doing, right? And the reason that I know that that's all it is I'm going to do is because, remember, my f of x numbers, guys, are my y values, okay? So if I have a number in front of here, like 3f of x, that's telling me take those y values and multiply them by 3, or multiply them by 7, or multiply them by 1/2, whatever happens to be, okay? So look, we're going to play the same game again. And it says, let's make a table for y equals 1/2 f of x. Okay, so I'm going to come back here. I'm going to erase this part here just because I want to look at my original table that we had again. And now we're going to do this one. So I want you to notice, again, on the inside, guys, that x has not been changed. It's still just a little x inside, just like the way it was right up here. So my x values, again, are not going to change. That's going to be -4. That's going to be -2, 0, and 1. But now what we have is we have y equals 1/2 f of x. Okay. So what does that mean I'm going to do? I'm going to take half of each of those numbers. Okay. So half of -1, y'all, would be a -1/2, right? Anybody know what's half of -4? Positive or negative? Still negative, right? Half of -4 is -2. What's half of 2? 1. And half of 2 again is still, and there you go, right? So what I want to point out is what most people have told me is when they look at this, the idea is, okay, I have no idea how to get started. And looking at it, it can seem a little overwhelming. What I'm trying to point out, y'all, is it's not going to be that difficult, because really what you're going to ask yourself is, what am I changing? Am I changing my X number, or am I changing the Y number? The way you know you're going to change your X number is if something is happening inside the parentheses, that means you're going to be changing those X numbers. And if anything is happening outside of the parentheses, whether that number is in front of your f of x, or whether you have like y equals f of x plus 3 or y equals f of x minus 7, something like that, if it's on the outside, then that tells you you're going to change your y values, okay? And are there times when you're going to change both? Yes, and we'll get there in a second, okay? But right now, we're just working with one piece at a time, okay? So look, let's kind of scroll a little bit more. Now, we're going to play the same game again. Now, though, we're talking about horizontal stretching. So guys, vertical, remember, vertical is up and down. So vertical means I'm changing the y values. Horizontal is left and right, like when if you go to the beach on Saturday, or you go on Friday night and you go to Louis and the sun is setting and you say, oh, look at the sunset on the horizon, because it's going left and right, okay? When you think of horizontal, the first thing you should be thinking about is my X numbers are going to change. And when it thinks about vertical, then you should say, okay, my Y values are going to change, okay? So the first thing I see here is horizontal stretching and shrinking. This tells me what's going to change are my X values, okay? So let's take a look, and it says, if the point X and Y is on my graph, look at the point that's going to be on my graph now. It's going to be opposite. X divided by C and Y. So what changed? The X number. It used to just be X and Y, but now it's X being divided by some number. So my X value is changing. That's why we said the X values change, right? Is going to be on the graph of Y equals F of C of X, okay? Again, C is just some number. That number C could be 7. That number C could be 1/2. We'll figure it out in a second. Okay, so here is my function, right? We're going to make a table for this one right here. Okay, so guys, I want to point something out. Do you see how we're now taking the X values and we're dividing them by that number C? What we're going to do is we're going to take each of these X values here. We're going to take -2, and we're going to divide it by the number C. Look at what the number C is in this case. What's the number C? It's 2. Okay, so I'm going to take the first one. -2 divided by 2 is okay, that's going to be -1. My X values are changing, right? Okay, let's do the second one. -1 divided by 2, can't divide it, still -1/2. Okay, let's take the third one. So this one, this one, this one, this one. Let's take the third one. 1 divided by 2, I can't do it, it's just 1/2, right? And then finally, 2 divided by 2, 2 divided by 2 is 1. Okay, 1. My X values changed. Since there was nothing in front over here, y'all, since there was nothing in front of that F, my Y values stay the same. So that's still going to be a 3. That's still going to be a -3, a 3, and a -3. Okay. All right, we're going to play the same game again. So I'm going to look at the next problem here. Again, just a quick reminder of what it is we're doing. We're taking the X values and we're dividing them by whatever our number C is. The Y values are going to stay exactly the same. So again, I'm looking at this table of values, okay? I want to ask you a question here, y'all. What is my number C for this problem? What's the number in front of the X inside those parentheses? 1/2, right? Okay. Remember we said we're going to do, we're going to take each of the X values. Remember the first X value I have here is -2. So -2, and we are dividing it. I'm going to write my division sign like this. Instead of me writing it as a fraction, I'm going to use the old school division sign. we're dividing it by 1/2. Guys, remember, you can think of this as -2 as -2/1. So -2/1. Do y'all remember how we divide fractions? What do we do with the second fraction? Anybody remember? You got to flip it, and we make it into a multiplication problem, right? Every time I'm dividing fractions, first fraction stays the same. We change it to multiply, flip the second one. Always the second one, every single time. Okay, what's -2 times 2? -4/1, right? This here, guys, just becomes -4. Okay? -4/1, same thing as -4, right? Okay, let's do the same thing for the next one. So look, -1, I'm going to write -1/1. We are going to divide it by 1/2, which means -1/1 times 2/1. We're just going to go straight across, right? -1 times 2/1 is the same thing as -2, right? Okay. Let's do the third one. So look, I'm going to go 1/1 divided by 1/2. 1/1 times the reciprocal of 1/2, 2/1. And this is going to give me positive 2/1, which is just 2, right? And then we have one last one. We have the number 2. Okay, so let's do that one. So we're going to go 2/1 divided by 1/2. 2/1 times another 2/1. That gives me 4/1, which is just 4. Okay, so remember what we said. What values changed? Our x values changed, right? But our y values, y'all, don't change. So that's still going to be the 3, the -3, the 3, and the -3 that we originally had. Sorry, that we originally had right there, right? Those y values aren't changing. So the question is, how do I know how I'm going to change my x or my y? Again, if it's inside the parentheses, you're changing the x values. If it's outside of the parentheses, you're changing the y values, right? And then all you got to figure out is, how do I know, how do I change them? Oh, let's see. I think I lost it. Let me come back over here. Here we go. This is how I'm going to figure it out, right? If it is, and I want to show you something here, y'all. See how that c was inside the parentheses? Remember what we did with each of those x numbers? We divided them by the number c. See how this c over here is on the outside of the parentheses? So we didn't change the x values, we changed the y values by multiplying them by whatever that number happened to be. Okay. All right. So let me keep scrolling here. All right. Now we're going to have these things called reflections. Okay. Reflections are just like that. You're looking at the lake and you see the reflection of the sky or something like that, right? So we're going to have a reflection across the x-axis and we're going to have a reflection across the y-axis. Okay, just like we did before, y'all, look where the negative is. If the negative is on the outside, we are reflecting it about the x-axis. If the negative is on the inside, we're reflecting it about the y-axis, okay? So let's take a look here. It says, given the graph of y equals f of x, let's make a table for y equals f of -x. So if I was sitting where you're sitting, my first step would be, you know what, let me do this. I don't have a table right now, but let me make one for the function that we already have, okay? So what do I mean by making a table? When x is -2, y is -1. When x is -1, y is 2. When x is 3, y is 1. Okay. Now, how am I going to make this table here? Notice, nothing changed inside those parentheses. So my x values don't change. I'm going to leave those x values exactly as I saw them. But what do we have in front of the f of x now? we have a minus sign, right? What does a minus sign mean we're going to do? It means we're going to change our signs. So I'm going to come back to these numbers right here, and all I'm going to do is change their signs. So if that used to be a -1, now it's a +1. If that used to be a +2, now it's a -2. If that used to be a +1, now it's a -1. And I'm done, right? And did I absolutely have to make a table? I didn't have to make a table, but once I knew what that was, it was really easy, breezy, cover girl for me to do that part, right? And my whole thing is, let me try to make things as simple as I can. So if I just have the graph, then make a table. This was easy for me to do, right? Okay, let's do the same thing for the next one here. Okay, we're going to make a table now for y equals f of -x. Okay, so here's my x, here is my y equals f of -x, right? So the first thing I notice here, y'all, that is changing my x values because, again, it is inside those parentheses, right? And notice, since I have a negative inside my parentheses, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my original table up here, and I'm going to say, I'm going to change the sign of each of those x values because now I have an additional negative. So that used to be a -2, now it's a +2. If that was a -1, now it's a +1. If this was a +3, now it's a -3. Since there's nothing going on the in front of that f or after that parenthesis, that tells me, hey, you know what, Omar, your y values aren't changing. Leave this as a -1, a 2, and a 1. And you're done. Okay. All right. So let's see if we can do this next problem here. And let me get my mouse going. Here we go. Oops. All right. So let's see if we can figure out how to do some of these problems here. All right. Look at the problem here. It says, given the graph of y equals f of x, draw graphs for y equals f of x plus 2. Okay, so the first thing I notice, y'all, when I look at this part here, nothing has changed inside those parentheses, so I'm not changing my x numbers. Since the +2 is on the outside of the parentheses, that means I'm going to change my y values, right? And notice here, since it's a +2, all I'm going to do, y'all, is come back over here. How am I going to move it? I'm going to move it up. And in this case, how many spaces? 2, right? Okay, so look, let's do that. Let's move our graph up 2 spaces. If this point here was -2 and 2, now it should be at -2 and 4, right? Because I'm going up 2 spaces. If this point here used to be at 0, -2, and I go up 2 spaces, now it should be at 0, 0. And if this one was at 2, 2, and I'm going to go up 2 spaces, so it used to be 2, 2, go up 2 spaces, now I'm at 2, 4. Loud, am I doing okay? I just changed the y values, right? And what do we do with each of those y values? We just added 2. So really, Laura, all I did is I went like this, +2, +2, +2. Better? Good. Okay, so look, let's take a look at the next one here. All right, so guys, this one, we have something going on inside and we have something going on outside. So that means I'm going to change both x and y numbers, okay? But we'll figure it out right now. First thing I want you to notice right here, there's an x -2 indoors, right? So I'm going to come back over here. Since it's an x -2, I'm actually going to move which way? To the right, okay? So right here, so I'm showing you again, guys, all I did is I pulled this up, guys, from the formula sheet that's in the week 6 folder. I just pulled that from here and I just pasted it here so we don't have to keep going back and looking every single time, right? Notice I'm going to move to the right 2 spaces. So what I'm going to do is with each of my x numbers, so I'm going to come back over here and I say, look, with each of my x numbers, these are my x numbers. If I'm going to move to the right 2 spaces, right? What am I going to do with each of those numbers? If I'm moving them to the right, am I adding 2 or am I subtracting 2? If I'm moving that way, adding 2. So look, we're going to go like this. Plus 2, plus 2, plus 2. Okay? We'll figure out what those numbers are going to be in a second. Now, we also have a -1, and that -1 is outside. So when I come back over here and I say, look, what happens when I have a -1 outside? We're going to move down 1 space, right? So I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to say, you know what I also need to do? I need to go -1, -1, and -1 to the second numbers, right? So look, let's see if we can do this together. Let's do the x numbers first. What's +2 and -2 going to give me? 0, right? So the first point is going to have an x coordinate of 0. Then let's do the y values. Remember we said we're going to subtract 1. What's 2 minus 1? Okay, 1. There's my first point, 0, 1. So guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 0, 1 is going to be right there. Okay. 0, 1 is going to be right there. Okay, let's come back again. Let's do our second point. 0 plus 2 is 2. What about a -2 and a -1? Negative how much? -3, right? Okay. So 2 and -3 would be right about there. Okay. And we have another one. Let's see. The third point. Right here, 2 plus 2 is going to give me 4. And then, oops. And then finally, let's see, 2 minus 1? 1. So 4, 1 is right here. Boom. There's our graph. And all I'm doing, y'all, is just doing one piece at a time, right? One piece at a time. Okay, look, we got a third part. Okay, let's see if we can't figure this out. So guys, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to come back over here to try to make this hopefully somewhat easier. I am going to, like we did earlier, I'm going to make a table of values. And then this way, I have something to reference to, right? Okay, so when x was -2, y was 2. When x was 0, y was a -2. And when x was +2, y was also +2. Okay, so now that we have that, let's see if we can do C. Okay, so C says y equals negative f of x. Okay. All right, first thing I want y'all to notice, y'all, is inside here, nothing changed. So since nothing changed in my x values are going to look exactly the same. All we're doing, if you look right here, since we have a negative, all we're doing is we're changing those signs. So instead of 2, -2, and 2, it's going to be -2, +2, and -2 again, right? Because we have a negative on the outside. So all I'm doing is changing those signs right there. Okay, so let's see if we can draw this one. So -2 and -2 is right here. 0 and 2 is right here. And +2 and -2 is right there. There's our graph, right? Okay, so guys, I'm going to zoom out for a second because I want you to look at, and I know it's, I'll just do it like this. Remember, look, there was the original graph, right? Now, look at the one that we just came up with. Didn't that graph flip like it did a somersault? It flipped head to the tail and tail to the head. Now, remember what we called that over here? When we had the negative in front of it, we said that was a reflection across the x-axis. So what does that mean we did? We thought about, like, if you could put like pins right here, and then all we're doing is flipping it like that, right? And that's what we mean about the x-axis. Remember, the horizontal one is the x-axis. So all we did is we just flipped it that way, okay? But let me ask you a question. When we make this table here, does it seem easier on how to do this part? Right? So remember, this table right here, y'all, the first one, all I did is I said, look, let me just make a table of those numbers, right? So I did that. And then when I look at this one and I can do a little stare compare, I can say, look, the only thing is different is that now there's a negative in front. So what are you going to do? Change those, right? And that's all I really got to do for it. All right. So let's see if we can do the same thing again here, guys. I got another couple of problems. I'm going to paste the little formulas again down over here just so that I have something to reference to and it's easy for me to get to them, okay? So I tell you what, in doing, say, this problem right here, the first thing I would probably say, let's do this. Let's make a table of values. Okay. All right, so I know that when x is -2, y is 0. When x is 0, y is 2. And when x is +2, y is also 0, right? And all I'm doing is just picking the points that we have there on the graph, right? Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to say, look, let's make a graph for this one. Okay. First thing I notice, that +1, is it inside or outside? Inside, right? So look, let's come back over here. If it's inside, we're going to move to the left, right? And guys, when we're moving to the left, aren't we really going to subtract because we're going that way? So look what I'm going to do. I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to subtract from each of those numbers. So -2 minus 1, -3. 0 minus 1, -1. 2 minus 1, 1. What changed? Hey, our x values changed, right? The y values, y'all, stay exactly the same. So look, I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to say, look, let's go ahead and plot these now. -3 and 0, right there. -1 and 2, right there. 1 and 0, right there. Oops, I missed it. Boom. And if you look at this graph compared to this one right here, all we did, we just shifted it over one spot, right? We just went, boom, one space over. All right, let's see if we can do the same thing for part B, okay? So look, for part B, first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say, look, let's make a table. Boom, okay? First thing I notice, y'all, inside that parentheses, I don't have anything that I didn't have before. We just got the letter X. So my X numbers are not gonna change. That's still gonna stay a -2, a 0, and a 2, right? We have a negative on the outside. All that means I'm going to do is I'm going to change the signs of those original y values. Well, 0 is still 0, but +2 is now going to become -2, and that's still going to stay as 0. So -2 and 0 will still be right here, But now we're going to go to 0, -2, and 2 zeros right there. And there's my graph. And again, if you notice this graph here compared to that graph there, all we did is we flipped it over, right? We just flipped it across that x-axis. All right, and then looks like we got one more like this, so let's see if we can do it. Okay. So I'm gonna make my table. Okay. First thing again, I'm gonna notice here, y'all. Inside my parentheses, it's still the letter X. Hey, my X numbers are not gonna change. That's still gonna be -2, that's still gonna be 0, that's still gonna be 2. What number do we have on the outside? We got a 2, right? Okay, so when we have a 2 on the outside, all we're going to do, y'all, is come back to those original y values, and we're going to double them. We're going to multiply them by 2. Well, 2 times 0 is still 0, but 2 times 2 is 4 now, and 2 times 0 is still 0. So let's go ahead and plot those. So -2 and 0 is right here. 0 and 4 is right up there, and 2, 0 is right here. Boom. And there's my graph. Right. And guys, I want you to look at this graph here and compare it to the one that we originally had before. Didn't this graph get stretched like that? Right? Those numbers kind of, it got stretched, like it got a little taller, sucking the panza in, right? And going like that, compared to the original one that we had, right? That's what's happening. And that's why we talked about that stretching or the shrinking, that kind of thing. That's in essence, that's what's happening, okay? All right, so guys, that's 2-7. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pull like 3 problems from the homework because I wanna make sure that even though we did the notes, I wanna make sure that we can apply it to like the actual homework problems you guys have, right? Because, you know, just doing the notes is one thing, but being able to look at it from the homework is a different story, okay? So let's pick like 3 problems. And let's see. Okay, I'm gonna pick this one here. And I'm picking, this is like number 2. Okay. And like that, like this. Come back over here. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if we can't figure out this problem. Okay. It says, suppose the point 8 and 14 is on the graph of y equals f of x. Find a point on the graph of the function y equals f of 2x. Okay, so let's see if we can do that. Here's the original point that I have, right? Now we're going to find a point on y equals f of 2x. I want you to notice something here, y'all. Isn't there something going on in front of my x? Because it's not just an x before, now it's a 2x, right? Okay, so look, the way I'm going to figure this out, I'm going to come back over here. And I'm going to say, look, let's take a look. All right, this is what I'm looking at, okay? Because I have something similar to this, right? I have something similar to this, because in our case, we have y equals 2x. Look what it's telling me to do. It's telling me to take the x number and divide it by whatever that number c is. So I'm going to come to my problem, and I'm going to say, look, let's take the x number, which is 8, and we're going to divide it by 2. The y number, y'all, is not going to change. How do I know that? Look what I'm doing. I'm taking the x number and I'm dividing it by whatever that number c is, right? So I want you to do a little stare and compare. Y'all agree with me here that x is the 8 number? We're good so far? Okay, c here is the, right here. C is the number 2, right? If I do a little stare and compare, and I look at this right here, and I look at this right here, my C would be the number 2. Look what it's telling me to do. It's telling me, hey, take your X number and divide it by whatever C is. So we're doing that. We're taking the x number, we're dividing it by whatever c is. What's 8 divided by 2? 4. So look, the answer is going to be 4 and 14, right? Now, you might say, really? And I tell you, yes. Look, 4, comma 14. Check it. Boom. We got it, right? And what am I doing? I'm doing a little stare and compare. Guys, I'm going to always, especially for 2.7, that formula sheet, the whole formula sheet is going to be super helpful. But that part in particular is something that I'm going to be referencing all the time. Because if I try to memorize it, it's way too much. But if I can just look at it and say, okay, what is my X number? What's my C number? What is it telling me to do? Okay. Let's do the second part. So the second part now says, hey, look, we don't have f of 2x anymore. We have f of 1/2 x. Remember what we did before? We took the x number and we divided it by that number that was right there. What's our x number here again? What's the value for x? It's 8, right? But now we're going to divide it by, what's my number c here? What? 1/2, right? Remember how we divide fractions? We say this is 8 over 1 times the reciprocal of 1/2 is 2 over 1, and 8 times 2 is 16, right? So now I'm going to have the point 16, and remember, my y value is not changing. For the second part, it's just going to be 16 and 14, right? What's the only thing I'm changing? Is just the x value. Does that make any sense? So look, I'm going to come back over here, and we're going to put 16, 14. And we're going to go chickadee check, and we got it, right? So, guys, the problems are going to take a little bit of time to do, okay? I don't want to lie to you and say it's going to be like super easy, breezy, cover girl. What I do want to tell you, though, is if I can see what the problem I have is, and if I can reference that to that formula sheet, then I'm saying, okay, does this look like which one of those? And then let me see what I have to do, okay? So look, let's pick another question out of here. Let's see. I know there's certain questions that I definitely want to go. Okay, this is going to be another one I want us to do. Okay, and now, guys, I want you to notice this problem here. This problem here is just a table of values, okay? There's no picture, nothing like that, just a table of values, okay? So let's try this one here. I'm going to come back, paste it right here. Okay. Let's see what's going on here. It says two functions f and g are related by the given equation. Use the numerical representation of f to make a numerical representation of g. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do, y'all, is I'm going to rewrite this g part. G is f of negative x plus 2, okay? So the reason why I want to do this problem is this problem involves, there's multiple steps in this problem, okay? It's not just changing the x, it's also changing the y. All right, so guys, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start making a table here, okay? And I know there's a table there. I'm going to write my own table because then I can copy and write stuff down. I want you to just look at this part. Forget about the plus 2. Just look at that part right there. What am I doing with my x numbers? I have a negative there. That means I'm changing the signs of all my x numbers, okay? So look, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to change the signs of all of my x numbers. So I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to change each of those signs, okay? Instead of negative 2, what am I going to write? Positive 2. The next one? And then? And then? And then? Okay? All right, so I want to point something out. Guys, we fixed that part already, okay? It was that easy. All we said is, hey, look what I'm doing. I'm taking my x numbers and I'm changing their signs. Okay, second part now says, we have a plus 2 on the outside. Remember what a plus 2 on the outside means? It means I'm going to take each of these numbers here, y'all, and I'm going to add 2 to every one of them. What's 10 plus 2? 12. 7 plus 2? 9. 4 plus 2? 6. 2 plus 2? 4. Negative 1 plus 2? 1, right? And this is g of x equals f of negative x plus 2. Okay, now the reason why I wanted to write my own table is because now when I come back to this table here, I want you to notice something. Look at how my x values look here, and look at how my x values look right there. Do you see that they're different? How these here, the top ones, are positive 2, 1, 0, negative 1, negative 2. But over here, the negative ones are coming in first. Do you see that? Okay, so look, we're going to go slowly. When x is negative 2, what is the y number we have? So we're going to put a 1 right there. Okay, so look, all you're doing is you're just rewriting it. Isn't when x is negative 2, isn't the g value 1? Right? So isn't this telling me what's the g value? So I'm going to write it right here. I'm going to say, look, that number there is, oops, that number right here is the number 1. And then look, I'm going to say, look, when x is negative 1, what is the y value? That was a 4, right? And when x is 0, y is 6. And when x is 1, y is 9. And when x is 2, y is 12, right? So guys, the reason why I wrote out my own table is because that's what we've been doing all night tonight. We've been writing out our own table. Don't worry about what they're giving you. Let me write my own table. And then if I notice, hey, look, my table is positives and then negatives, but they have theirs negatives and positives. So if I got to do this, if I got to switch my table around like that with the x values, then I got to do the same thing with those y values, right? I got to change them around. So look, we come up with 1, 4, 6, 9, 12, right? So look, you're going to say, does it really work? Well, let's try. 1, 4, 6, 9, what do we get, 12? Chickadee check. Oh, my heart skipped there, little guys. I was like, man, what happens if it comes out wrong? You're saying, nobody, he doesn't even know what he's doing. Okay. So, again, the reason why I wanted to do this problem here in particular, y'all, is because since they give me that table, we're tempted just to say, okay, let me start filling it in. But we never did that before. We always said, let's make our own table. So I'm doing the same thing here, okay? That's why I really wanted to kind of do that problem there. Let me do one more, and then what I really want to do, y'all, is just answer any kind of questions that you guys might have out of your homework. Let me see if I can pull another one. I'm going to see if I can pull another one with a table. Here we go. Here's another one with a table. So I want to do the ones with the tables because I think for the most part, and again, when I was doing this, you know, I've taught this class 101 times, guys. So when I've taught this class before, typically the question that people have is like, how do I do this when I have a table? So I want to make sure that we can do that, okay? So look, okay, here's another problem. And again, this is directly from the homework. You can see I'm copying and pasting, right? Now, guys, my problems might be slightly different from yours in the sense that the numbers may change, but how I'm going to solve it is going to be the same, okay? So look, let's see if we can do the same thing we did before. Here is, my pen is dying on me. Here we go. Here's our table, right? I'm not even going to worry about the table that they gave me. We're going to make our own, just like we did earlier, okay? And then we have g of x, which is f of x plus 2 minus 1, right? Okay. I'm going to go one piece at a time. Plus 2 on the inside. What does plus 2 on the inside mean? Let me come back to my, here we go. Let me come back right here. Look what we said. Plus 2 means we're going to do what? Subtract 2. Okay. So let's do that. Let's come back over here. Now, guys, what we're doing is we're subtracting 2 from the x values, right? So look, I'm going to write down my x values right here. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and I'm going to go like this. Subtract 2, subtract 2, subtract 2, subtract 2, subtract 2, subtract 2. Okay. Let's go through one piece at a time. What's 1 minus 2? Negative 1, right? 3 minus 2? 1. 5 minus 2? 3. 7 minus 2? 5. 9 minus 2? 7. 11 minus 2? There you go. Halfway, you're already done. Okay? All right, what else do we have? Oh, look, we have a minus 1 on the outside, right? Okay, hold on. What does a minus 1 on the outside mean? Let's come back over here. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. Minus 1 on the outside. Isn't that mean I'm also subtracting? Because I'm going down, right? But if I'm going down, I'm subtracting 1 from my y values now, guys. Okay, so look, I'm going to come back over here. And I say, look, I'm going to write down my y values. So my y values are 1, 4, 5, 7, 6, and 10. And we're going to, excuse me, we're going to subtract 1 from each of those. Okay? What's 1 minus 1? 0. 4 minus 1? 3. 5 minus 1? 4. 7 minus 1? 6. 6 minus 1? 5. 10 minus 1? There you go. Guys, just like we did before, we made our own table. They gave me a table. I don't care. I'm going to make my own. Now, what I want you to notice is look at our table and look at their table, right? Where are they starting off at? They're starting off at x is what number? 1. When x is 1, what is our y number? 3. When x is 3, what is our y number? 4. When x is 5, what is our y number? 6. When x is 7, what is our y number? 5. When x is 9, what is our y number? 9. What about this one? They just didn't use it. Didn't mean it's not there, they just didn't use it, right? But now I filled in the table for the values that they asked me, right? And I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to say, look, let's put those same numbers that we got in. 3, 4, 6, 5, 9. Oops, okay. 3, 4, 6, 5, 9. And let's go chickadee check. Boom, we got it, right? Ooh, made sure it was going to work. Okay. So again, the one thing I really want to emphasize is that these problems that you have dealing with the tables, don't worry about the way they're writing their table. You make your table just like the way we've been doing so far. Then once you make your table, then go back and you can do a stare and compare. You can say, oh, look, they didn't even start off with -1. They started off with +1. Well, then let me start off with +1 and fill in those numbers as I go along, right? And that's how I'm going to do my problems like this, okay? So again, guys, the other thing I really want to mention, as you're doing your homework, my recommendation would be have that close by, right? And you were saying, where did I get that from? This piece right here? All I did, y'all, was, let's see. All I did, y'all, was, and Laura, I'm going to share this with you too so you can see. So let me stop sharing my screen right here for a second. And let me share my Chrome tab. Here we go. So guys, I'm looking in the week 6 folder, and all I'm doing is right here, the formula sheet for test 1. And so when you click on that, let me stop sharing this. And Laura, I'm going to come back so you can see that again, because I know you are watching at home. Boom, here you go. And here's my formula sheet, right? And this is the part that I'm using right here, right? So again, if you have a printer, you want to print it out, that's fine. If you want to just save it, on your iPad or your laptop or whatever, just so you have access to it, okay, guys? So last week when we were here, we were talking about like when the test comes, right? Can you use your notes? Yeah, you can use your notes, right? And I was telling you guys, if you have to use your notes for every single problem, then it's just going to take you a really long time to do the test. This is one where I would definitely have this handy because I need to know this, right? But if you're like, okay, here's the equation of a line, y equals 3x plus 2. And the question is, what's the slope? And you have to go back and look at it every single time. That's one that you should already know at this point, right? Or at least get familiar with it before you take the test. There is a 4-hour time limit on the test, guys. So if it takes you 20 minutes to do each problem because you got to go and look up where is a problem similar to this, you're not going to finish the test, right? So you want to make sure that you use the formula sheet, but that you're also somewhat familiar, right? Because if it takes you too long to finish it, then wherever you stop is where you stop. You definitely don't want to do that. Okay, so anywho, now that we did that, the question that I have for you guys is, what questions do you guys have for me out of anything in the homework? If you have any questions out of the homework, and if you do, we will go over them. Anybody got any questions on homework out of anything at all? Jess. No. Okay. 2-7? Yes. Let's do question number 9 out of this section here. Oops. Let's go question 9. Boom. Okay. So let me copy this. And let me paste it here in my notes. Okay. All right, so it says, suppose the point -4 and 4 lies on the graph of y equals f of x. Determine a point on the graph of y equals g of x where g of x is f of x minus 3 plus 2. Definitely. Okay, first thing I notice here, there's a -3 on the inside. Guys, if there's a -3 on the inside, that means that I'm moving my graph to the right, okay? Moving my graph to the right. And all I'm doing here, y'all, is I am thinking about this right here. See how it's -3, right? We said it was a -3, so I'm moving it to the right. I'm just thinking about that formula sheet right there, okay? All right, so let's take a look. So I'm going to be moving to the right. So I'm going to take my x value. If I'm moving it to the right, I'm really adding 3 to my x value. So if my x value used to be a -4, but I add 3 to it, wouldn't my x value now be a -1? Because I'm taking -4 and I'm adding 3 to it. Does that make sense? Okay. And then look what we have on the outside. We have a +2, right? So again, if I go back and I reference that formula sheet, if there's a +2 on the outside, that means it's going to move up 2 spaces, right? So what am I going to do? I'm going to take my y value, go like this. I'm going to take my y value and I'm going to add 2 to it. So 4 plus 2 should give me 6. So my answer would just be the point -1 and 6, right? And then we can always check our answer. We can say, look, let's come back over here. So -1, 6. And we will check it. And we got it. Did that make sense how I was able to do it though? Yeah. It takes a little time, right? We have to kind of become familiar with what is it that I'm doing, right? So I got to look at if there's a minus inside, what does that mean? Always come back to the to the formula sheet. And then you'll be able to kind of determine what you're going to do where. All right. Any other questions, guys, out of anything? Yeah, question number 1 out of 2.8? Yes. Definitely, let's do that. Okay, so guys, let me pull up question number 1 out of 2.8. Let's go like this. Let's come back to assignments. 2.8. Let's take a look at question number 1. Okay, and let's do this. Okay, like that, and like this. Here we go. Okay, so guys, this is question number 1 out of 2.8. Again, guys, my problem might be slightly different from yours, but the idea is they should be similar, right? Okay, so let's see if we can figure this out. We are trying to find f plus g of 1. The way I find f plus g of 1, y'all, is I'm going to do this. I'm going to find f of 1, I'm going to find g of 1, and because it has a plus in the middle, now I'm going to add these two numbers. So remember, the way we find f of 1 is we come back to this function here, and everywhere we have an x, we put a 1. 1 plus 4 is going to give me 5. So that part right there is going to be 5. Bless you. And the way we're going to find g of 1 is we're going to come back to this function, and everywhere we have an x, we're going to put a 1. So 1 squared is still 1, and 1 minus 1 is 0. So 5 plus 0 is just going to give me 5. Robert, am I doing okay? Yeah? And then, guys, I'm going to check my answer to make sure that y'all believe me and I'm not making up stories here. We'll go like that, and then we got it, right? And guys, look, I'm going to show you another one. I know Robert didn't ask it, but look, this problem is similar, right? It gives me f of x, gives me g of x, but now it says f minus g of negative 4. So look, we're going to do this problem just like we did the other one. Let me copy this one and paste it again back into my notes over here. Okay. And we're going to go slow. We're trying to find f minus g of negative 4. This means we're going to find f of negative 4. We're going to find g of negative 4. Look what's in the middle. There's a minus sign. So I'm going to put a minus sign there. Okay. All right. Let's do this. F of negative 4 means I'm going to come back to this problem right here. Okay. Guys, negative 4 squared is negative 4 times another negative 4, positive 16. Okay. 2 times 16 is 32. 32 plus 4 is 36. So that number right there is 36. Okay. So far, are we good? Everybody, thumbs up, thumbs down. Did I lose you? Did I lose you on f of negative 4? Are we good? You're lost? Okay. Are you okay on how I got this part? Right here? Right? So I'm plugging it into this piece right here, right? Because that's my function f. So everywhere I have an x, I'm putting the number negative 4, right? So remember, negative 4 squared. Remember what negative 4 squared means. Negative 4 times another negative 4, positive 16, right? 16 times 2 was 32, and then add 4 gave me 36, right? Okay, we're going to do the same thing, y'all. G of negative 4. I'm going to come back over here. We have a negative 2. Now we're plugging in a negative 4 plus 3. Question. Anybody know negative 2 times negative 4? Positive 8. Plus 3 is 11. Minus 11, right? Why minus? Because that's what we had right there, right? Where in the first problem, we had what in the middle? Plus, so that's what we added, right? This one we're subtracting. 36 minus 11 should just be 25. And I'll come back over here again, and I'll plug in the number 25, and we'll check it, and we got it, right? Let's see. Negative 4? Oh, you were like squaring it? That's right. So guys, one thing you'll have to keep in mind is when you're plugging your number in, you got to go back and follow the order of operations. And some of us may have, I know some of us has been a long time, some of us maybe less time. That's supposed to be a D right here. But like parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract, that kind of thing. So I'm dealing with my exponent first, right? So when I have the negative 4 being squared, that's why we said, okay, negative 4 squared means negative 4 times another negative 4 is 16, and then I multiply it by 2, right? So I don't want to take the 2 and multiply it by the negative 4 and then try to square it. I got to square my number and then multiply it by 2, right? And then I'm just following the order of operations, multiply, divide if we have it, add or subtract, that kind of thing. But in essence, that's what it is you're doing with these types of problems, okay? That's what it is you're doing with the problems in 2.8. And then depending on how it's written, what is it asking you to do? Then you'll do that. So they're right next to each other, they're being multiplied. If one's on the top, one's on the bottom, then they're being divided, right? Any other questions y'all might have out of chapter 2, 2.8 or anything? Yes. I'll tell you what, let's look at, let's see. Let's go to the next question. So look at the next one. They're right next to each other, right? So what are we going to do? We're going to multiply them, right? So look, I'm just going to copy and paste. Let's copy this, put it over here, paste it, boom. Okay. All right. They're right next to each other. That means that they're being multiplied. Okay. So look, we're going to find f of 9, we're going to find g of 9, and we're going to multiply it. F of 9, remember what f of 9 means? It means come back to this function f. And everywhere you have the letter x, what number are we going to plug in? 9. 9 squared minus 10. What's 9 squared? 81. 81 minus 10 is, so I'm going to put a 71 right here. Boom. I know I'm going to multiply it, that's why I'm putting parentheses, okay? Now, let's do the same thing for g of 9. So we're going to come back to this function. 13 minus 9. Anybody know what 13 minus 9 is? 4. Good. What are we going to do with those numbers now? Multiply them. 71 times 4, that's 4. 4 times 7 is 28. 284. Right? And then I'll come back over here and I'll say, look, let's put 284. We got it. Better? Yeah. Look, guys, what do you think we're going to do with those? Once we find f of negative 5 and g of negative 5, what do you think we're going to do with them? If it's a fraction, does a fraction mean you add, subtract, multiply, or divide? What do you think? Add, subtract, multiply, or divide. What does a fraction mean you're doing? You are dividing. Very good. Dividing. Excellent. Good. Thank you. I heard you. Perfect. So look, let's do this one here. So I'm going to copy and paste this one también so you guys can see it. Okay. And here we go. Okay, so we're going to go one piece at a time, right? We're going to find f of negative 5. We're going to find g of negative 5. We're going to divide them. Okay, f of negative 5. So I'm going to come back to this function here. Negative 5 squared minus 7. What is negative 5 when I square it? Anybody know? 25, good. And 25 minus 7 should be 18. So here upstairs on the top, we got 18. Let's do the same thing for g of negative 5. So I'm going to come back over here. Now, guys, I'm going to be real careful when I write this. Look, 3 minus a negative 5, because I'm plugging in negative 5. Even though there's a minus there, I still got to put that negative 5. Minus and minus become plus. That gives me 8. Okay. So we end up with 18 over 8, but I bet you we can reduce it. We can divide them both by 2. So that's 9 over 4. Excuse me. So 8 doesn't go nice and pretty into 18, but we can divide them both by 2, so we have a simpler fraction, 9 over 4. And again, I'll plug in my answer so that you guys can see that I'm not pulling your leg. And there's 9 over 4, right? Okay. Any other questions y'all have out of chapter 2? Anything? That means we're subtracting them, right? Right? So those little things on the inside are going to tell you exactly what it is you're trying to do, right? So if I look at the first one, what did it have on the inside? It had a plus. So once I find those numbers, I add them. If it's a minus, once I find those numbers, I subtract them, right? If they're right next door to each other, multiply them. And if one's in the top, one's in the bottom, then you divide them, right? So yeah. So let's see, guys. So let's take a look at number 6 just to make sure that we're okay with this. Okay, so look, I'll tell you what. We're going to copy and paste number 6. And we're going to do this problem just like the way we've been doing the others, okay? I don't need all of that. I just need this here. Copy it, come back over here, and let's paste this thing here. Okay. All right. So guys, just like we've been doing before, we're going to do the same thing here. Slightly different in that we don't have equations, we have a picture. Remember what the first one says we're going to do. We're going to find f of 0. We're going to find g of 0, and then we're going to add them together, okay? I'm going to show you the way you're going to find f of 0, okay? We're going to zoom in. Here's my graph, okay? The f is the blue line. When I'm trying to find f of 0, right? F of 0. Remember what that number inside is? That's the x number. What is the x number that I have here? Okay. When x is 0, go up until you hit the blue line. What number did we stop at? 1. So that tells me that f of 0 is the same thing as 1. Okay? We're going to come back. We're going to play that game again. We're now going to find g of 0. So remember, g of 0 is right here. We're going to hit the g line, which is the dotted one. If I go up and I hit my line, where do we stop at? 2. Now you're done. What do you think? Am I doing okay so far? Robert, are we good? Just checking with you. All right. So look, let's try the same thing for the next one. Look, we're going to play this game again. We're going to go f of -1 minus g of -1. Okay. Let's come back to our graph, right? Remember, f is the blue line. So I'm going to go to the left when x equals -1. Do I have to move up or down, or am I already hitting my graph? We're already hitting it, right? We're already on the blue line. What's the y value right there, guys? If we're not going up and we're not going down, what is the y value? 0. Very good. The y value right here is 0, right? Because when I move to x equals -1, I'm already hitting the blue line, right? Okay, let's go to g of -1. So look, I'm going to go to the left, and I'm going to go up until I hit my value for g. What number would that be? 3. So 0 minus 3, -3. Okay? Look, let's do the third part. So part C. Part C says we're going to find f of 1, we're going to find g of 1, and since they're right next door to each other, they're going to be multiplied. Okay, so let's come back over here. Let's look at our picture again. Let me get rid of all this. Okay, and we're doing this at 1. Okay, so here's 1. I'm going to go up till I hit the F graph. How many spaces did I have to go up? Good, 2. Okay, let's do the same thing for the G graph. I'm going to go to 1. I'm going to move up. I only move up 1 spot. And 2 times 1 is just 2, right? And I want to say there's a third part. There it is, at 3, okay? So I'll do it over here so I don't have to keep scrolling back and forth. We're going to find f of 3, we're going to find g of 3, and we're going to divide those numbers out, okay? So let's do this, f of 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's go up until we hit the function f. How many spaces did we have to move up? You can count 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Okay. Let's do the same thing for the G part. So here's 3. We're going to actually move down how many spaces? 1. So what's 4 divided by -1? And you got it. It's just one piece at a time, guys, okay? It's one piece at a time. So as you're doing the problems, whatever number it's giving you, that's telling you you're looking for the y number when the x is whatever you have inside your parentheses, okay? And then you'll figure out, you know, what's the y number, either moving up, it'll be positive, or moving down, it'll be negative, but that's basically what it is you're going to do, okay? We doing okay so far? Yeah? So guys, we probably got time for at least one more. So let's try the next one here in the homework list, okay? And I'll tell you what, let's fill those numbers in so you can see that I wasn't playing reindeer games with you guys. Let's see, what do we get for the first one? Oh man. We came up with 3 for the first one, so let's plug that in. So we got 3 here, let's check it, good, okay. For the second one, -1, we came up with a -3. Oops, we came up with a -3. So let's plug that in. Check it. Good.
Mr.
For the third one, yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. The screen had went black, but now it's back on.
Okay, yeah, that was my mistake.
No, it's okay.
Okay, for the third one, we came up with 2. So we're going to put 2 right here. And then for the last one, what did we get for the last one? We came up with -4, right? So here we go, -4. Now, and I'm going to share this with you two at home so that you can see what it is I'm doing. So let me do this. Let me stop sharing this part, and let me come back over here so you can see what it is I'm doing, Lauren and Gabrielle. Let's see, let's go like this. Okay, so y'all can see what I'm doing, and I was just like verifying our answers. So I want you to notice on the fourth part, you know, the answer we came up with was -4, so I'm putting it right here. And then there was another one here that says not defined. The time that it would be not defined or undefined is if the number on the top was just some number, but the number on the bottom was 0. Remember the other day we talked about dividing by 0, why we can't do it? And I said, okay, what's 24 divided by 6? And he said it was 4, why? And then we showed that for 0, it was never going to work. So the only time it's going to be undefined on the last part, y'all, is if the bottom number when you're dividing is 0. In this case, it wasn't. So I'm just going to go like this, check my answer. And we got it, right? So look, we got time for at least one more. So, and you know what? I'm going to kind of skip over this one here, y'all, because it's the same type of problem. I want to do one that's a little bit different. And I'm going to do a couple of them that are a little different. I'll do some of these here. Let me see. Okay, so I'm going to do two problems that are different. If you notice problems like, let's see, this is number 11, this is number 10, this is number 9. If you can see here, these problems are kind of similar. So I'm going to do one of these, and then I'm going to do another one kind of like this, and just so you all can see what it is I'm doing, okay? So let me copy this, let me paste it to my notes, and then for those of you who are watching at home, I'm going to share the screen with you guys again so you all can see what it is I'm doing. So let me stop doing that. Come back over here. Here we go. Okay. So I want you to notice in the middle. In the middle, I do not have a multiplication sign. This is what we call the composition of functions. Okay. And guys, I'm going to pull this up. I want to say, here we go. This is in the notes for 2.8. And there is a definition right here. This is how I do the composition of functions, y'all, okay? And guys, in that formula sheet, this should be there too, okay? But what I want y'all to notice here is this piece, okay? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use that, what I just underlined or boxed in red, I'm gonna do that to do my particular problems, okay? So let me come back to, here we go, to the problem that we got. Here's our problem. It has f of x equals 3x minus 1. H of x is negative x plus 3. We want to find f of h of 2. Okay, so just by using that little definition that I had earlier in the red box, what that really means for my problem here, y'all, this means I'm going to find f of h of 2. Okay, now just like when you have order of operations and you got parentheses, you always work from the inside out. I'm going to do the same kind of thing here, y'all. Do you think we know how to find h of 2? If I know that this is h of x, wouldn't h of 2 just say, hey, come back over here, and everywhere you have an x, plug in the number 2, right? Isn't that what h of 2 really means to do? So if you notice, there's a negative right there. That's why I wrote the negative. I put the number 2 plus 3. So h of 2, y'all, what's negative 2 plus 3? Anybody know? 1. Very good. Thank you, Robert. 1. Okay, so now look, I'm going to come back and say, look, this is saying, well, we already know that h of 2, we just figured out that that was 1. Now, can we find f of 1? Yes, we can, because there's my function f of x, right? So what am I going to do now? I'm going to take that function, and everywhere I have the letter x, I'm going to plug in the number 1. So I'm going to say 3 times 1 minus 1. Well, 3 times 1 is 3 minus 1. My answer is 2, right? And I'm just going to check my answer. I know those of you at home can't see me checking my answer, but everybody here is going to tell you, hey, we got it right, right? And guys, they're all nodding. Those of you at home, they're not saying he's lying. Okay, so look, we did that one. Let's look. I want to do one more, just exactly like this, because I want you all to feel okay about these here. Okay. And then I'm going to do the other one, and then guys, we'll probably call it a night there. But again, just a reminder, y'all, next Tuesday, what I really want to do is I want to spend as much time as we can going over questions from the review. Okay, so if you're at home, guys, those who are at home, those of you who are here, between now and next Tuesday, try to do as many of the review problems as you can, right? I know it's a lot, it's 49 questions, right? Remember, the test has 20. So what I did when I made the test, I picked 20 from those 49. Okay, so every question you're going to see on the test came directly from the review. I didn't say, oh, you know what, I didn't ask them this question in the review, let me throw it on the test. I didn't do that. I picked them exactly the same, right? Okay, look, let's try this one. I'm going to do exactly what I did before, y'all. I'm going to go one step at a time. What this right here means, it means I need to find f of h of negative 2. And guys, the easy breezy cover go away, you can figure this out. Like which one do I put first, the F or the H? The order that it's written here is going to be the order that it's written there. Okay? Now, just like we did before, we can find this value. We can find h of negative 2 by saying, look, let me come back to this function. The first thing I see is a negative, so I'm going to write it down. The number that I'm plugging in is negative 2 minus 5. Okay? And then I'm going to go slow. Remember, negative and negative become positive. So this is 2 minus 5. That gives me negative 3. Okay? So h of negative 2 is the same thing as negative 3. Okay? Now, how do I find f of negative 3? I come back to this piece. And I say, look, the first thing I see there is a negative. Let me write it down. Then I'm going to put a negative 3 minus 1. Okay? So negative and negative become positive. That's 3 minus 1. My final answer is 2. Okay? And again, I know those of you at home can't see this, but we're going to plug our answer in. We're going to come up with 2. Check it. And we got it, right? So look, because we are running out of time, let me do one more. I'm going to skip over this one because this is almost the same, almost the same. And let's see. Let's try this one here, okay? And guys, I know those of you at home can't see it right now. I'm going to copy and paste it so you can see exactly what it is I'm looking at, okay? Okay, here we go. Okay, so look what it's telling me to do. It says the tables give some selected order pairs for the functions f and g. Find f composed with g of 14. Okay, guys, remember how I told you before? How do I know which order to put it in? They're already written in the right order. F is going to come first, then g, then what's the number on the inside? 14, right? Okay. The difference in this problem compared to the last two we did is we had equations for f, right? We had f of x equals x squared minus 1, whatever it happened to be, right? We don't have that here. But we can still find g of 14, right? G of 14 means, hey, I'm going to use this table. Why this one? Because it involves the g. Remember what the number on the inside stands for? The number on the inside stands for the letter x. So check this out. When x is 14, what is the value of g? It's 12, right? So I'm going to say, look, this is saying, let's find f of 12, right? The f, because the f was already there. All we did is we just said g of 14 is the same thing as the number 12. Now that I'm using the f function and I'm trying to find f of 12, I'm going to use this table. Remember, this number in here stands for the x value. So check it out. When x is 12, what is the f value going to be? 9, right? Because now I'm using this one, right? So when x is 12, the y value is 9. So I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to say, what's my answer here? It's 9. And I'm going to chickadee check it, and we figured it out. Does that make sense? Yeah? Guys, I know it's a lot. We're only here once a week, so I know we're kind of doing a whole lot tonight, but I just want to make sure that you guys are feeling okay about how I'm coming up with the answers. We're coming up okay? I know it is a lot, guys. I know it's a lot to absorb. If we weren't in the middle of this whole COVID-19, we would be twice a week, right? We'd have more time. But look, I think we still got time. Let me try one more. Guys, I'm going to skip over this one because we just did one like this. I want to do one like this one here, but I'm actually going to pull up the last one. Okay. And again, the reason why I want to do this one here, same type of problem, just slightly different in the way it's presented, okay? And since I'm not going to see you guys for a whole week, I want to make sure that You guys feel like you're getting your money's worth? Okay, here we go. All righty. Okay, so guys, I'm going to play the same game we've been doing before. Okay, I'm going to look at the first part, f of g of 1. It's already written for me right here. I'm going to write it in the order that it appears. Just like that. F coming first, G coming second. Okay. Now remember, we've done this kind of stuff before. We know how to find G of 1. So guys, G of 1 is, the G is my red function. Okay. So let me come back over here. And if I'm trying to find G of 1, remember what G of 1 means. It means let's go to the x-axis. Here's x equals 1. If I want to hit the G function, which is the red one, do I need to move up or down? If I'm going to hit the red line, should I move up or down? We got to move up, right? How many spaces up did we move? There you go. Okay, so look, I'm going to come back over here, and we're going to say, look, this number G of 1 is the same thing as the number 3. So now let's find f of 3. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here. Okay, and I'm now trying to find f of 3. Now, guys, f is the blue function. So I'm going to come over to when x is equal to 3 right here. Do I need to go up or down to hit the blue function? So should we go up to hit the blue or down to hit the blue? Down. How many spaces down did we move? So isn't that going to give me -1? So then I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to say the answer for the first part is -1. Okay. And again, I'm going to play this game, guys. I'm going to do it two more times because we still got 2 parts to do. And again, I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to do this one now. Look the way it's written. G, it looks like Goff. Okay? But this tells me which is going to be the one that comes first. And then this tells me which is going to go on the inside. So look, I want to find f of 1. Okay? So I'm going to come back over here again. And I'm going to look at my picture. Okay, I'm going to clean some of this mess up because I don't need everything here. Okay, we want to find f of 1. So here's x equals 1. If we're going to hit the f graph, we got to move down to -1, right? Okay. Always on the x-axis, every single time. So the number on the inside, very good question. The number on the inside here is telling you where to go on the x-axis. Okay. Right? So we went to 1 right here, and then we're going to go down to hit the F because we're looking for F, right? Okay, so now look, oops. So now we're going to say, look, we already found that, and that number ended up being, oops, it was a -1, I want to say. Okay, so now look, we're going to find G of -1, right? So since we're looking for G of -1, remember what we said, we're going to first start on the x-axis. There's -1, right? If I'm going to hit the G function, I got to move up to what number? 1. Okay. So my answer here for the second one is 1. And then we have one last one, y'all. And then I'll show you that when we check our answers, that I'm shooting you guys straight, okay? I'm not lying to y'all. Now, if you look at this one, don't be concerned that they're both G. It's okay. It's going to be G of G of 0, okay? And just like we did before, this is what we're going to start off with. We're going to find what is G of 0. So I'm going to come back over here. Let me erase some of this mess so it doesn't look so messy anymore. G of 0. I'm going to start right here. Okay. I want to hit the G function. How many spaces up did I have to move? 2. Okay. So then we're going to say, look, this is G of 2, because we found that G of 0 was 2, but we still have that G there. Okay. So now let's find G of 2. So we're going to go here to 2. To hit the G function, we got to move up. How many spaces up do we need to move? There you go. Right? And so here are my answers for each of those problems, right? And so guys, those of you who are at home, I'm going to stop sharing this so that you can see that when I share the answer, here we go Boom. And let's see. Okay, so what answers did we come up with? We came up with -1, 1, and 4. Oops. So I'm going to go like this. -1. Check it. There you go. +1. Check it. ¿Qué tal? And 4. Check it. And mira nomás, we got them all done, right? Okay. So guys, remember, I'm recording the video. I'm gonna upload it probably sometime tomorrow morning. I'll send you guys a message on Pronto saying, hey, look, I uploaded this thing. So guys, when you're doing your homework, I know y'all haven't had a chance to finish up 2.8 yet, or maybe even 2.7. But when you're doing your homework, I would recommend, if I was sitting where you're sitting, I would recommend having that video available, right? So guys, remember, if you don't have to, I know some of you have the Pronto on your phone. This way you get the message immediately. But I also want to show you, and I'm going to share this screen with everybody so y'all can see as well. Let me pull this down. Let me go like this. Chrome tab, document, here you go. And let's see. I think you guys can see it. Yes, y'all can still see this. And so let me see. Here you go. If you hit the Pronto thing here, it's going to open it up in a new tab. Let me share this with those of y'all who are at home too. Oh gosh, where is it? Here we go. Boom. Share. And let's see. It's still coming up. Okay. And then our class is this one right here. So this is the message I sent to you guys earlier today, right? You'll be able to access the video, right? So like, oh man, I want to say I did one the other day. Here we go. So this was our class session. So you can, if you want to watch it on your laptop, so you're not having to look at a little thing on your phone, you can get it from here too, guys, right? And it's probably much easier to see it on your computer screen than it is to watch it on a little phone thing, right? So I want to let you know that this is here too, okay? So when you're going to watch the video, like the recording of what we did tonight, as you're going through to finish up your homework for 2.7 and 2.8, you can reference those problems. You know what I mean? You can look at it on your laptop instead of having to look at it on a little phone or something like that, okay? The main reason why I wanted you all to have Pronto on your phone is just so that if you have a question, it's easy for you to message me. It's easy for you to get a message from me. But again, if you're going to watch a video, my recommendation is, just pull it up on your laptop. You're always going to have it right there. And guys, when y'all pull this up on your laptop, it pulls up the Pronto for all your classes. So you can see I'm getting messages from another one of my classes here, but I'll deal with them later. But, you'll be able to access all that kind of stuff in one spot, okay? So anyway, let me stop recording, guys. And again, I will upload